Welcome back to Beyond Bandwidth, Leviton's podcast series where we dive into network technology's hottest topics. I am your host from Leviton Network Solutions, Roy Chamberlain. In this episode, we are joined by two leaders in our industry, Patrick Aldrich, a partner and senior technology and security consultant at ECC Technologies, and Cody Burgess, a principal and account manager of the rep firm Morgan Hill Marketing, both stationed in upstate New York. We discuss the fine points from the field level on design and implementation of extended reach applications and solutions. Okay, welcome to the show, gentlemen. This is going to be the first episode featuring two guests at the same time on Beyond Bandwidth. So kind of trying something a little new this time out in the great Rochester, New York area. So now we have Cody and Patrick. Patrick, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I started my career as a network engineer. Through the years, I transitioned from the operations side to the design and consulting side. Today, I'm a senior technology and security consultant, as well as a partner at ECC Technologies.
Nice.
Yeah, so my day-to-day work really focuses on designing IP-based systems, surveillance, access control, and the associated infrastructure related to that.
All right, great. What about you, Cody?
So I came into the industry in 2019, came on at Morgan Hill, and then recently transitioned into a partner at Morgan Hill. And my role really is to do business development and educate and entertain is what I like to say. My role is out in the market. So that could be for contractors, that could be for end users, that could be for engineers, anybody that is interested in telecommunications or network infrastructure.
All right, great. Well, thank you. And it's a good dynamic I see here for us to kind of get into this kind of murky topic of extended distance applications over copper cabling. So we're going to start right off with Patrick, first towards you. What areas are you asked for extended distance applications? Basically PoE and or data requirements, which are over 100 meters in distance. Where are you getting those requests? What types of devices and applications are you seeing that?
So we see extended distance applications most often in our large environments where devices are spread out. Think outdoor cameras on poles or Wi-Fi access points in stadiums or parks. Warehouses and manufacturing facilities are another big one because it's often, specialized machinery requiring connectivity without the space for a dedicated TR room within the 100 meters.
Right.
So essentially anywhere anyone wants to power and connect IP-based systems beyond the standard 100 meters, we're really asked to design solutions that extend that PoE and data reliably. Typically, that's through a hybrid fiber optic cabling solution, such as OneReach, or an extended distance copper cabling.
Okay. Cody, are you seeing the same thing, or are you seeing other types of applications as well? What are you seeing?
No, I see a lot of that same thing. What I specifically get asked for is extending camera applications. So just trying to cover somewhere that does not have good visibility, right? And that could be a public safety issue. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm actually seeing more of is that these things are no longer nice to haves, but it's becoming a public safety type issue where it's a must have now.
Okay. So out of these requests that you receive, Patrick, are you seeing these more frequently or more diverse requests than there were in the past? And if so, where did you start to see the increase, in these requests for your designs?
So there are definitely more frequent and more diverse than they used to be. When I first started out as a network engineer, most PoE applications were pretty straightforward. You had phones, a few cameras, and some access points, all within that 100-meter limit. But over the past decade, we've really seen a big shift as IP systems expand into things like building automation, large-scale surveillance, outdoor Wi-Fi. The demand for the extended distance solution really took off. To your second question, the turning point was really the late 2010s. High-power PoE standards came out, and smart building and IoT deployments started accelerating. So that's really when our clients began asking us to connect devices hundreds of meters away, whether it's in warehouses, campuses, outdoor environments, without building new telecom rooms or running separate electrical lines. So since then, these requests have only grown, and today they're really a regular part of our design work at ECC.
Okay. All right, good. So Cody, when did you see an increase of extended distance? Did you see this start getting trendy in your experience?
Well, I came in 2019, so it wasn't the 2010s for me.
Right.
But during COVID, I started to see a lot more extended distance applications. And, my gut tells me that that was due to people no longer needing to focus on their core network at that point. And then they were like, okay, well, let's look to other areas that we can tackle.
Okay.
And those areas ended up being extended distance and gaps in security, gaps in their coverage that they had. And then it just has continued. Like, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. Once a customer does it once, they want to do it more and more. And what else can I do? How else can I extend this and go further? Right.
Right. And then you talk about COVID, there were a lot more empty spaces, right? So having surveillance for unmanned spaces and areas, probably that might be part of it. Now, moving on to all of these things, just like you said, Cody. So now you're seeing even more requests for things like this, extended distance applications. With the different types of devices and requests, what are the primary challenges you're experiencing in providing solutions for these extended distances?
I would say some of the primary challenges are historically when you were doing an indoor cabling solution, just a horizontal cable, you only had the 300 feet. So you were running through indoor environments, and your indoor environments were only influenced by EMI and other types of devices that could influence that cable.
Okay.
And now you're able to run a lot further. You're able to run through more environments and different pathways that you couldn't previously
Yeah.
due to the 300-foot distance requirement. So now that you can go much further, it brings you into different environments, and that can be through areas in your facility that you couldn't get to before. And now you're tackling 2 different environments within one cable pole, or 3. And then the whole challenge of going from indoor to outdoor is another area where you essentially have to follow outdoor code requirements than just indoor. So getting people to understand the different environments and the opportunity for more environmental influences on the cable is where I see the challenge.
Yeah.
Because they're like, okay, extended distance, great. I'm just going to run it. But when running further distance, there's just more environment that cable is going to go through, and that will affect the performance. So considering those things is getting people to recognize that before they just run a cable and hope for the best.
Yeah. So there's a lot of other needs when we're dealing with extended distance that pop up. Yeah, that's really interesting. I never really have seen that as much myself because I'm not as deep on that side with kind of the other areas like the pathways and things like that. So Patrick, how do you address the grounding and lightning protection on extended distance solutions which end up going outdoors?
Yeah, when we're extending the PoE beyond 100 meters outside, grounding and lightning protection are critical to our designs. We typically use a layered protection, so that surge device is in line on the 18 gauge conductor from the chassis location. Second surge device on the conductors at the far end, and then we put a third one in between the IP endpoint and the remote module. We typically use a product like Ditech for that, for their protection on the outdoor cameras and access points. On the cabling side, One Reach is excellent for us because it combines the fiber for the long run with the copper for the power delivery, so we can push it hundreds of meters reliably. And together, those approaches really let us deliver an extended distance connectivity without sacrificing any safety or performance.
Okay. Cody, from your perspective, you're seeing a lot from the contractors who have to put these things in and end users. Are you getting questions and requests about the lightning protection?
Yes, but it usually doesn't go in as much depth as what Patrick is usually getting into. They just ask, does this need to have lightning protection? And yes is the answer.
Okay. So, Patrick, what solutions have worked well for you and your clients supporting extended distance applications?
Yeah, so we've worked with a bunch of different solutions. Like I said, whether it's kind of the long reach copper cable or the hybrid. And the gold standard in our kind of master spec for this type of deployment has become a hybrid fiber technology, and it's typically the Leviton OneReach system.
Okay, and what's the hardest part in trying to design and implement these solutions you mentioned, or other solutions that you've worked with?
Yeah, so the hardest part isn't usually the technology. It's more making sure all the details line up. So from a comprehensive drawing and spec package, proper grounding, proper surge protection, and really coordination across trades so that the infrastructure is safe and reliable. That's really where the hardest part comes in, especially in the outdoor environment.
And is there anything that could be made better in addressing extended distance products that would make it easier or better in your opinion? I mean, I know including Leviton's products, there's a lot of requirements, right? You have to make sure this is inside a NEMA box. You have other different requirements, other ideas out there that you get from your clients or your team that looking to make things easier or better?
I think if I could wave my magic wand and make it easier, I'd like to see more of a partnership between companies like Leviton and companies like Ditech, really
Yeah.
integrating the protection into the OneReach family, because having that distance, power, and protection built into a single unified system would really simplify the design and reduce the risk even further. But for now, our approach of combining OneReach with Ditech really sets the benchmark for how we approach these type of deployments.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. So, Cody, do you have any thoughts on how designing or implementing extended distance solutions could be improved?
I would say the solutions that Leviton have really are pretty comprehensive and pretty good. But the thing that I would encourage customers to do that would help improve their infrastructure would be to have a spec for extended distance. So having something that says when going beyond 300 feet, default to, and have that spec list out what they want
Right.
and make sure that they're taking control of this extended distance, because the risk you run is getting something that might be low bid, quote unquote, and that might work day one, but the opportunity for problems to arise in a month or 3 months goes up. So I would just say I would like to see customers start to have an extended distance spec specifically for these types of applications that they're looking
Yeah.
to tackle, and using companies like Patrick's, ECC, or relying on companies that have extended distance solutions and just kind of talking to them about what it is, what the pros and cons are, and then looking to build that solution for themselves. Because without control of it, you do open yourself up to some potential headaches for your return on that investment.
Yeah, that's a good point. We broke that out a couple of years ago. We have a Division 27-16-16 extender system spec, and it's a great point that you bring up. It is important so you don't get a solution that will cause you headaches in the future.
Yeah, so that's like a guidebook, right? Just like Patrick, you said what you have in your spec, and Cody, what you're talking about, so from a manufacturer's side, if there was a guidebook, it's like, okay, well, going through, okay, you have extended distance over cabling, your standard Cat 6 or 6A, right? That is now approved for further distances. And we'll see when the TIA 5073 comes out, what kind of guidelines and what kind of recommendations they provide for that TSB. And then Division 27. So if you're going to have a performance spec, then everything else in those Division 27 requirements tend to be, okay, this is the requirement. And then the contractor goes through the spec and determines, what needs to be installed for that particular device or area, kind of, right? But with extended distance, one of the things that's pushed a lot is engineered solutions. And I know Todd Harple, who's our guest host this season and is the editor for the TIA 5073 TSB, he brings that up a lot. So in other words, if we're doing extended distance, we really should be looking specific. And we do want to, but like Cody said, right, it just makes a lot of sense for us to still be thinking about the future, right? Still be thinking about other devices. I mean, if we're going to run something that's going to go 500 meters or even 150 meters, that's an extensive distance. And just like Cody said, There's a lot of obstacles, right? You might have to do new pathways because there weren't pathways in those places before. Might have to go outdoors. That can include outdoor work, which is expensive, right? You have parking lots, all kinds of things that can come up. So being able to utilize, like we do with all structured cabling, the systems for more than just that one engineered solution, that's a really good point that definitely I think the industry will need to graduate to. So going back to the diversity in the different devices, what about the PoE that you find? So obviously up here we have cameras that are pan tilt zoom and require heaters. So some of those can be type 2 or type 3, maybe even more PoE. Do either of you guys run into situations where the power is really becoming the limiting factor?
I can give you an example of one of those. We were working with an organization for a video surveillance camera way out, a couple thousand feet, and there was no way to get power out there, but the camera was a UPOE camera. So we looked at other solutions, and at the time, those didn't have the power requirements or couldn't fulfill the power requirements of our need. And the OneReach was the only solution that would work for us. And you have to build a conduit out there either way. So there is a capital expense, but to not have to also run power conduit out that way and all the switchgear associated with that and the pathways there, it turned out to be a net savings for them.
Oh, wow. What about you, Cody? Are you seeing more higher powered devices, and how is that affecting designs? Is that a limiting factor for what we're trying to do, or what contractors or clients are trying to do?
Yeah, I get a lot of calls about whether they used the Leviton extended distance or somebody else's. I get a lot of calls about, well, our extended distance didn't work and it was due to like the camera, right? And I'll be like, well, when you're designing it, did you design the distance in the PoE to match what the spec sheet said for the maximum amount of draw that comes into play on that camera? Or was it just as you look at what the draw of the camera was and the design for that? Because
Yeah.
when the heater kicks in, that actually draws more power. It gives a little bit of a power spike. So the maximum power draw and the power draw typically on spec sheets for devices are different. And if you think you have a type 2, but really the power spike puts you into type 3 PoE, did you take that into consideration? That's some of the problems that I see out there, is that people are not necessarily looking at the maximum capacity, but they're looking at what, the continuous power capacity, not the max draw.
I've run into a couple situations and I've done some research, and there are some cameras getting into PoE. There's the IEEE 802.3 PoE standards that are focused on the standardized type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, right? That's what we learned. That's our industry standard. But some cameras will use their own proprietary power, right? And I know we've all come into this situation. Well, what I've found is there'll be cameras that for type 1 and for up to 30 watts or 25 watts, type 1 and type 2 will work. And then when they go to above that for the heater, once it hits that, all of a sudden nothing works anymore because they've left the standardized PoE and they've gone to a proprietary PoE type system in that device. And we've actually done testing. I've had cameras sent back to New Holland to be tested. And up until they'll do pan tilt zoom, they'll do recording, everything. But once those heaters kick on and push them above that 25, 30 watts, all of a sudden nothing works. So those are some little things that we all have to watch out for. Well, guys, I think this has been great. Definitely good interaction. This will definitely be valuable to a lot of clients and customers and be able to help us along. We have a lot of other good guests. I think it's going to be a good season. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully we can do it again.
Love to. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it.
Beyond Bandwidth is a podcast series produced by Leviton Network Solutions. For more information on the topics we talked about today, as well as other enterprise or data center network infrastructure content, or to check out all available episodes of Beyond Bandwidth, visit us on the web at leviton.com/beyondbandwidth. or wherever you normally listen to podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd appreciate you leaving an honest review in your podcast application. Along with word of mouth, leaving a review will help others find our show. I'm Roy Chamberlain, and this was Beyond Bandwidth. Until next time.